I'm Trey Gibbons here in Times Square, and we're going to talk about theater in New York City. 38 just in this vicinity. They weren't always here, though. Back in the 1700s, most of the theaters existed way downtown around Park Row, which is close to where City Hall is today. In the mid-1800s, they began to migrate further north up the island of Manhattan, and most of the theaters in the mid to late 1800s were actually along Broadway close to Madison Square Park and Park Avenue South. And then around the early 1900s, they began to migrate further north to this neighborhood, which most people in the world call Times Square. Most New Yorkers like to refer to it as the pit of hell. Too many people who don't know how to walk in crowds. I want to give you a little bit of advice. You come to New York, visit New York, please come, take pictures, but it's just like driving. If you want to stop when you're driving to look at something, you pull over to the side of the road. Same principle applies here. Naked Cowboy, a fixture here in Times Square. Naked Cowboy.
How you doing? All right.
Naked Cowboy. All right, guys, I want to take you and show you my favorite Broadway theater, the Lyceum. Let's go. But this is the oldest continually operating Broadway theater in New York City. It means it's never been closed down for long periods of time. This was built in 1903 by a theater impresario by the name of Daniel Frohman in the early 1900s, and he was married to an actress by the name of Margaret Illington. Margaret Illington was the big stage actress of her day. If you lived here 100 years ago, you probably know who she was. Her husband, the theater producer, built this theater so he could produce plays, cast his wife as the lead in those shows. He essentially built this theater for his wife, which makes every other dude in the world look so cheap. He had an apartment at the top of the theater, and he had a window installed at the back of the apartment so he could look through the little window and watch his wife's performances down on stage. But Margaret Illington had a tendency to overact really big. And as he would watch her performances through the little window up at the balcony level of the theater, he would wave a handkerchief out the window so she could see it down on stage to let her know, hey, lady, please take it down a notch. It's getting a little too big. The very first Broadway play I ever saw was right here at the Lyceum. It was a revival of Neil Simon's The Sunshine Boys, and it starred Tony Randall and Jack Klugman, and it was absolutely hilarious. A lot of other great plays have been here over the years. You Can't Take It With You, I Am My Own Wife, Born Yesterday, Venus in Fur. Whoopi Goldberg's one-woman show here in 1984 was so well received, it really helped launch her film career. So you could basically say she started right here. So that's it, folks. That's my story. I hope you had fun hearing about Broadway theater. When you come to New York, make sure you check out a Broadway play. You can learn more stories about theater here in New York, Times Square, and other great neighborhoods when you take a real New York tour. Speaking of, I gotta go give a tour now. Later.